Hey guys. Now, this video is a little different than all the rest of the videos in the course that are going to follow this one. And see, all the videos after this are full of actionable tips, and techniques and things that you can actually do to become better looking. But before we get to that, I want to lay a little bit of groundwork. So I want to start the program in this video by asking one really fascinating question, which is, what is attractiveness? I mean, why do women find some men irresistible and others not so much? Well, in many cases, attractiveness is really an evolution thing. No joke. I mean, in the words of researcher Nigel Barber, published here in Ethology and Sociobiology, Nigel says, quote, "Women compete with each other for high-quality husbands by advertising reproductive value in terms of the distribution of fat reserves, and by exaggerating morphological indicators of youthfulness, such as a small nose and small feet and pale, hairless skin. Men's physical appearance tends to communicate social dominance, which has the combined effects of intimidating reproductive rivals and attracting mates." And this is published here in the Journal of Ethology and Sociobiology. And here's one more, and this is an article from Psychology Today in which Vinita Mehta, PhD, EDM, says, quote, "Studies have revealed a not-so-obvious factor that explains why some women find themselves irresistibly drawn to masculine men. Quite simply, it's because they're healthier. And from an evolutionary perspective, good health has great value in the mating market because it increases the probability of reproductive success. Previous research shows that masculine features are associated with markers of healthfulness, including upper body strength, less oxidative stress, and fewer bouts of illness. In addition, elevated testosterone levels are linked to a powerful immune system response." So, to kind of sum it up, we humans evolved to be more attracted to certain qualities. And those qualities indicate, for a man, in general, those qualities indicate one of two things. The first one is a better chance of survival, and the second one is a better chance of successful reproduction. Okay, so now I'm going to look at these two things in a little bit more detail as they apply to men specifically. So first of all, survival. So why do you think that, women are attracted to big, strong men with lots of muscle? Well, I mean, the answer should be pretty obvious if you think about it in terms of evolution. Because throughout history, big, strong men were stronger, right? They were more likely to be able to survive in the wilderness and, better able to protect their family than tiny, weak men were. So over time, the women who were attracted to big, strong men were more likely to survive and pass on their genes because their hubby could fend off that saber-toothed tiger, while the women who were attracted to skinny, weak guys got eaten along with their skinny, emo boyfriends. And this applies not just to physical strength, but also to social power and dominance. In a group of cavemen, it was the alpha male who was going to get to eat first, giving him the best access to food and other important resources. And for another example, just look at your skin. Clear, healthy, glowing skin is considered attractive across every culture in the world. And why? Because having great skin is a reliable sign that you're in good overall health and that you don't have any boils or plagues. Having great skin, clear skin versus having, pimply bad skin makes a huge difference in your attractiveness. And that's why it's the first section of this program. Makes sense, right? Okay, so now let's look at the second item on this list, which is successful reproduction. And in order to illustrate this just in a really clear way that just makes it really obvious, we're going to look at women for a second. So why do you think that we men are generally attracted to women with big breasts? I mean, this should be pretty obvious too, right? In terms of evolution, a woman with large breasts is going to have more milk to feed babies. More food for your baby means a better chance that baby is going to survive to pass on mommy's big boob genes. Okay, so now let's try another one with women. And this one involves a fun little game. So in the next screen here, I'm going to show you 3 women's figures, and I want you to decide which one is the most attractive. But here's the catch. I'm going to block out everything except their waist and their hips. Ready? Okay, here you go. Now, you probably took about half a second to decide that the woman in the middle was obviously the most attractive, right? It's really easy. But why? Why is it so easy to make that decision? And how can you tell without seeing her face, her legs, or breasts, or any of that stuff? Well, the reason is because the woman in the middle has the best hip-to-waist ratio. Hip-to-waist ratio just refers to the circumference of the hips compared to the circumference of the waist. So if you take a look at the woman on the left, she has big hips, but her waist is so large that it's actually wider than her hips. It makes her hips look small. Look at the woman on the right, on the other hand. She has a slim waist, but she has no hips. She almost looks like she could be a kid, but she's not. She's just an adult who's just very slender. The woman in the middle, however, has the best of both worlds. She has a slim waist with nice curvy hips, and most men find this really sexy. And the reason for that is because having big childbearing hips means that a woman is more likely to survive pregnancy, which is a big deal back before we had hospitals and healthcare and stuff. Plus, a high hip-to-waist ratio also indicates a really good estrogen to testosterone ratio in women, which is a great sign of good reproductive function. So, the point to all this is just to drive home the point that usually attractiveness is not random. We find certain physical traits attractive for a particular reason. And for the most part, the things that we humans find attractive are the things that would help us to survive and reproduce as cavemen, because that's how our bodies evolved. Now, you probably noticed that I said usually attractiveness is not random. Does that mean that sometimes attractiveness is random? Well, take the peacock for an example. Male peacocks have this giant plumage that they display to female peacocks. These huge, beautiful, colorful tail feathers. And female peacocks will judge the male peacocks based on their feathers. The biggest, brightest feathers will get you laid if you're a male peacock. Now, do a peacock's feathers help him survive or reproduce? Absolutely not. As a matter of fact, a peacock's tail is very heavy and awkward, and it's basically the opposite of camouflage, right? The bright and colorful feathers actually stand out in the wild, making it easy for predators to spot, catch, and kill the peacock. So how did this situation develop? Why are the female peacocks attracted to something that makes the male peacocks less likely to survive in the wild? Well, some researchers think that it's a sign of strength. In other words, in order for a male peacock to be able to survive in the wild with this huge disadvantage, of a tail stuck to his butt, he's got to be pretty tough. But not everybody agrees with that opinion. Some researchers think that the peacock's tail feathers being used as a reproductive signal is basically just a weird quirk, a random chance that, just happened to perpetuate itself through evolution. So it just kind of randomly got started, and then, because that evolved to be that way, it just kept, it kept being that way. Similarly, we humans have some attractive traits that really don't make a whole lot of sense when you think about them in terms of evolution. So, for example, take hair. Long hair is often considered very attractive, especially for women. But hair itself, doesn't really have a whole lot of survival value. Sure, it keeps you a little bit warm, but for one thing, the idea that you lose most of your hair through your head is not true. Not to mention, really long hair can get tangled up, predators can grab it, it can snag on trees and branches, and it can house fleas and other parasites. So when you start to think about it that way, hair starts to sound like an evolutionary disadvantage. But we still seem to find hair attractive, at least most of the time. Now, I kind of put this here as a joke, but actually, it kind of drives home the point a little bit more. We find long hair on your head to be attractive, but belly hair or back hair, something like that, is considered very unattractive. But from an evolutionary perspective, having a little bit of fur on your stomach or on your back should be more of an evolutionary advantage, right? Because it'll keep you a little bit warm, but it won't have the problems that long hair will have, like, housing ticks and fleas and stuff like that. On top of that, there are a lot of things, beauty standards that vary by culture. For instance, in the Middle Ages, Europeans were attracted to pale skin, like this woman on the left. Most poor people in those days would have a very deep, dark tan because they worked out in the fields all day. So to those people, having pale, fair skin was kind of a sign of wealth because you didn't have to go work out in the fields. But today, in our modern culture, where most people work indoors, the opposite is true. Most of us are attracted to people with the tan. For another example of how attractiveness varies by culture, look no further than the 80s. So, to recap, attractiveness comes from evolution as indicators of both survival and reproduction, culture, and also just random chance. And generally speaking, women are attracted to traits that 1. Show strength and dominance, 2. Indicate good health, and 3. Fit in with our cultural ideas of beauty. Okay, so this is it for the sciencey stuff. From here on out, like I mentioned, we're going to talk about all the practical things that you can do to make yourself better embody those 3 traits: strength, health, and fitting in with cultural ideas of beauty, in order to make yourself a more attractive, better looking guy. Now, most of these things are relatively quick, easy to do, and inexpensive. All you really need is the knowledge of what to do and how to do it. Excited to get started? Then you'll want to get started straight away on the next video where you're going to learn how to dramatically improve the appearance of your skin.